Welcome along to the second part in my series where I talk about the UK comic Action, the only kids comic to be ever banned, and for that reason it made it highly collectible and also highly readable. In this episode I'm going to talk mainly about the first 20 copies of Action. They are classed as the smaller size and the fine grade paper size. These, I would prefer this to have the Action to continue with this all the way through its run, but it only went up to number 20, and number 21 was a larger size, a lesser grade paper, which these ones have survived much better than the other ones because they tend to drop the bits quite a bit. They were stapled together where these are stuck together, but we'll get more into that later on. Okay, so before we start, I think I'll just take a sip of my retro Cresta Pop in my retro mug, and also I would have loved to have put an Action t-shirt on, which I don't own. I've done this for retro look, as if we're sitting back in the 1976 realm, and also I could have worn this one, which is the only thing I've got really that's like memorabilia from Hook Joe badge, which was bought recently, well I'm saying recently, probably 10 years ago, for about £1 off eBay. Don't know if they make these anymore, but really nice. So okay, so your first, probably everybody's first introduction to Action was when they opened up their latest copy of Monster Fun or Whizzer and Chips, and they were greeted by this, which is a four-page pullout that told you about the first 3 or 4 issues of Action and what was in them. It says something special, something different is going to happen, and its name is Action. Now, it says on sale Saturday the 7th of February. Now it must have been put back because, as we all know, the proper date for number 1 is the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. Yep. So, and in this it showed you strips that was going to happen. It also told about the free gift, and that was in number 1. And it also showed you various strips that were going to be in there. It also told you about the free gift from number 2. The Iron-on Hook Joe, yes, Iron-on Hook Joe, and also week 3 was the football cards. Now, so I would imagine a lot of these comics from that week would have featured this and got everybody's interest in it. Now I didn't see that, which we'll get into more later on. So anyway, as I said, on the 14th of February, Action number 1 hit the shops, and here it is. The 7 Penny Nightmare in all its glory. Now, in this first issue, we are treated to seeing the emergence of the classic characters Dredger, Hellman of Hammer Force, Blackjack, the boxer, soon to be blind boxer, Play Till You Drop, Sports Not for Losers, the Running Man, the Coffin Sub, and also everybody's favourite, Hook Joe. Now, I never saw this issue, but I know my friends had it, and I used to go around their house and beg them to say, could I look at their number 1 of Action, which were probably lying in quite tattered at this point, because everybody would go to somebody's house and look at the copies that they didn't own. So that was number 1. Okay, so the free gift that came with number 1 was the, I believe it's called, is it called the Red Devil? Just want to get this right. The Red Arrow. And it was a plastic plane that you put an elastic band, that you got the free elastic band with, and you shot it off in the distance. And 9 times out of 10, it would go over the neighbour's wall and it would be lost forever. Now this means that there's not many of them around, and there's not many of them in the wild. So I personally bought 2 off eBay, and I've sold them since. I don't know how much I paid for them, but I know I sold one for £100. Now this was, at this point I was selling it because I wanted to get some money together for my drum kit, which I'd purchased for £2,000 on a scheme that from a year after I paid for it, if I didn't give them £2,000 I would have to go into high interest repayments. So I managed to scrape together the £2,000, and unfortunately the Red Arrow, or the 2 Red Arrows, were were part of that cull. But it worked, and also as well, I thought at this point I never ever did much with these free gifts, but I'm glad to have owned them and held them and all that type of thing. And eBay does throw them up from time to time, but they are expensive. So that was number one. Excuse me. So next was the first one that I ever bought, and it was number two. I remember seeing it on the shelf and saying to I think it was my mother was with us, and said, because you know at the age of 7 you never ever carried money with you, or never the grand total of 7 pence. I begged to say, can I have this thing? I got it. I had the actual size of the free gift, the transfer. I put it on a transfer. I put it on my t-shirt. I loved it. I wore it for about, well, maybe however many days I wore it till it got washed, and the whole thing just disappeared in the wash. I was gutted, but what else did you think was going to happen with it? But never mind. I don't have the free gift with this one. Although all of these early ones, even though I did own versions of them, I did own my number two was wrecked. So I have now went and bought these again off eBay, which you can still do. Sometimes you can get them for a good price. Sometimes these ones go for a ridiculous price, especially with a free gift. But strangely enough, in the time when I bought this one, somebody was selling, if I can find it, somebody was selling, where I put this thing, excuse me, that's it. So somebody was selling a copy of the transfer, and it actually, apparently, is supposed to have been able to put on, and it's the actual size. Now, I've never done it. I've never put the transfer on, although I believe you can. I think it was £5. I don't know if this person still does them. I've never ever seen them since these were on, maybe about 10 years ago. So I have got a copy of it, a cheap copy of it, and it just looks the same, but it'll never get used because, you know, you put it on, it'll be gone within 5 minutes. So there's that as well. So that's that one there. So anyway, and that was number two. Now, in number two, when I first got it, and I was greeted with sights like this, and if I can get that to you. Sorry, I'm trying to get this through there. Oh dear me. When I was treated to things like that, then you know you're in for a bit of a ride on this. This was just a blood fest, and if you can imagine going from the likes of you know, Whizzer and Chips and Cheeky Comics and things like that, and Monster Fun, and being, you know, shown this, because everybody by this point, which was the 21st of February 1976, everybody had been to see this movie, so we all knew that this was just like the further adventures of Jaws, you know, but as always, highly readable. So then part 3 came out, number 3 came out, sorry, and this is the 28th of February 1976, and you could get 16 great soccer cards. Now I believe that when you got them, you would only get a pack of 4, something like that. I don't think you would ever get the 16, or maybe if you got 16 you could get 4 packs of the different ones. I know I've seen them on eBay. I've never ever owned the cards, I've never seen them in the flesh, but for me they were never something I was really that much interested in. So for me, this is the only free gift I've never owned in action, personally. And it also had in it had Magnum Force, which when it was the center pages were be treated as this, and you could take this out and you can make it, as most people did, and you can make it into a game, which I don't think I own. I didn't think I went to number 3. There was a bit of a gap in my collection in the early pre-bands, because really it would just be when I was in the shop with somebody, they would buy me one, so I'd go maybe a couple of weeks without getting one. I didn't have it on order yet. That came a bit later on. So because that happened, you take it out and the majority of them would be left with the center pages missing. So you would get a strip that didn't really make sense. You would see the first half of it, and you wouldn't see the second half of it. If it was a colour, maybe Hook Joe was in colour in the start of it, all the colour pages of Hook Joe would be taken out to be on the back of the poster, which I think was a bit of a bad way. They could have put the poster separate, and you wouldn't have ever done that. So a lot of these ones with Magnum Force in, you find that you're missing valuable pages, probably the best pages in the comic, and when you want the pages in them, you pay a little bit extra for them. But beware, when you're buying them, there will be some pages missing out of certain actions, and action 3 was the first one that would ever have the center pages to be taken out and used in the game. This carried on, you know, I think maybe about 10. You've got to be careful with 10 of these pre-bands on the fine grade paper. So action number 4 was out on the 6th of March 1976. Another great cover, one of them covers, when you see it, I would imagine on the shelf, you would be really, it would stand out from the crowd, as they all did. Some of them more than other ones. And it has things on it like, as well, when you're reading on the start of it, you can, who is our first twit of the week, which is, you know, it had loads of really good little things in it. You had Action Man, Steve McManus. You had Money Man, who would go somewhere and drop money, and you had to find it. You know, they say that would drop money in the middle of Leicester one week, and then you'd have to go and find it, things like that. So this one is another one that would have had the center pages taken out of it as well, which unfortunately meant that when you did that and you took the game out, you would be missing pages like this on the back. So the whole strip would be missing this half of the strip. So if you've got them on resale or got them passed along, or even went to read them yourself and you'd rip them out, you were missing all of that half of it. So you'd only get the other half, which wouldn't really make sense, which, like I've talked about before, that's not really something you want to see. You want a complete action. But a lot of these fell to that problem, you know. So number 5 is the 13th of March 1976. Lovely cover. Battle at Slaughterhouse 3, and another Magnum Force in here, and also on the cover it's not too sure what strip that is, but Death Rattle. Now these things obviously were meant to get your attention, and they certainly did. Action number 6 was the 20th of March 1976. Now this had Magnum Force in again, the game, number 3 of Magnum Force. It's rough, it's tough, it's action. And you don't mess with Dredger or you're dead. In World War II, there were good guys, bad guys, and hellmen. I just love the way that they used to put these little sort of, you know, things, the anecdotes to get you drawn into it. This shark will scare the pants off you, Hook Joe. That wasn't far off the truth. Now, number 7 is the 27th of March, 1976. And that's the final part of Magnum Force. Even though it was 4 parts, you got this sort of extra little part on the back, which meant that you would get, the cover would fall off this one, and you would be sort of left with another problem where these, I'm not saying it's hard to get these, they do go up on eBay, I'm not saying they don't, but you've got to beware that you want to get a complete version of this comic, because if you don't, you'd be missing stuff and it doesn't make sense because you're missing vital bits of storyline. So for me, beware on these ones. But that's another one again. Hook Joe, his bite kills. Yep, size of that gob. But so yeah, so it's and on that one, yeah, so that was the final bit of the Magnum Force game. That's number 7. So number 8 was the 3rd of April 1976. The Killer Takes It All, Shark Attack on Boeing 727. That's a really good strip, that one, very bloodthirsty. And also this one here, although I wouldn't say it's my favourite cover, it's one of the covers that I thought looked almost photorealistic. Back in the day I thought that this was a really good drawing on there, more detailed than most of it. This is obviously Dredger and his pal, which is Breed, I believe. So yes, so there's a new all action Hellman story starts today, new where sports action is in April, and mad mini action machine inside. And also it's the last episode or last installment of the Coffin Sub, which was the first strip in number 8, the first strip to bite the dust. I wouldn't say it was the greatest of strips, but when I went back to read it, I think it's a lot better than what I thought of it. I didn't like it at all back in the day, but now I do really like this one, and I do think it's worth a read, even though a lot of people reckon it's the worst strip that Action had in it, but I wouldn't personally say that. Now, number 9 is the 10th of April, 1976, and it's got another great cover on, Hellman, obviously, and to me it's one of them ones. It's that well drawn. It's got that bit of photorealistic element to it, and since the good, the running man saves the life of his worst enemy, bad Hook Joe at his most terrifying and ugly, a mean fight where Blackjack takes on the bull. So this one here, even though there was a comic strip dropped in the previous one, Coffin Sub, there was no new strip put into this one, which you would expect to have, but no, they didn't put one in at this point. So number 9 is the 10th of April 1976. Now, even though this is a good cover with Hook Joe in it, I've got to admit I'm not a fan of the way Hook Joe is drawn on this. He looks more like a dolphin to me, and not as scary as he should be. So Hook Joe bursts into action, and again, there's no new comic strip in here. We're still waiting for a new one to be on. They're coming through. Read us if you dare. So it's still a great comic. I think all the comics were great in this period. You get no ones that are like a bum comic or the action in it's not there. It's all is in there. There's a few comic strips like The Running Man, which is starting to get into a more sort of darker tone, which I think was really great, and that was another underrated strip as well. That had a lot of good twists and turns. Probably based on The Running Man was probably based on like the Fugitive TV series and things like that. Everything's based on something in the 70s. Hook Joe is based on Joe's, obviously. So on number 11 is the 24th of April 1976, and this does have a new strip starting, and that new start was called Green's Grudge War, and that was another very underrated strip, one that I didn't really get on the first read, but look, when I read it back, it comes across as a very a good story arc, and very readable, that one, with some good drawn as well. There's some of the drawn in here is like unbelievable, you know, really good and all that. And also there's some pages in here that are a bit bad. There's like drawings that I could have done better with, but that far and few between. They must have been on a tea break when they did that one. So anyway, so that's number 11. Okay, so I'm just consulting my paper here because I would just not be able to retain all this information. So this is number 12, and it's the 1st of May 1976. Now, I would say this is not one of my favourite covers. I've seen a lot better. I don't think it's going to jump out at you. If this was the first one that you were going to go and see, I don't think that this would be one that maybe pulled you in, but you know, you never know. And also, this was the first one that had no Hook Joe in it, even though Hook Joe's on the cover, which is very strange. Dredger was in middle pages. He was in colour, which is an odd one. I think that's the only time he's ever been in colour, as far as I know, especially in this run of their fine grade paper. And it was the end of Sports Not for Losers, that strip, which, to be honest, I don't think I even remember, even on rewatch, I can't remember much of it as well. It was definitely probably one of my least favourite ones in the whole run, especially in this run. So yes, so that's number 12, the 1st of May 1976. And then we'll get to, which was a really good cover and also a good comic. There was no Hook Joe in here again because they had to be put in a sideline because they wanted to introduce a new strip, and that strip was Death Game 1999. And this was obviously, excuse me when I grab this, it was obviously influenced by the amazing 1975 film Rollerball, who everybody who saw that poster was amazed. I never saw the film on release at all, I was too young, but I used to see this, you know, in the cinema on What's Coming Next, and I couldn't believe that this poster existed. It was just, back in the day, all the posters for films were amazing, and this one was, even though the film isn't as good as I thought it was, it's just a bit too long, but never mind, I do enjoy the film. So their version of that was Death Game 1999, one of the best strips that ever went into action. I know a load of people like this comic, this strip, should I say. And at this point, a bit of a shout out goes to Andreas Stavros, who is I know he's a big fan of this strip, as he's a big fan actually of Green's Grudge War, and he wrote a song about it. If I can link it into this one underneath, I will. If I can't do with it, search for, I'm going to say that Green's Grudge War, she might have made the song about that, I could be wrong, I should have researched this before I went on, but anyway, Andreas will have, and he might be able to put it into this link, a song about that, as we've got other songs about it, but I'll get more into that in a different video, probably group all the songs in together on one more video, on another video shall I say. So sorry for that bit of waffling in there, but anyway, big shout out to Andreas, because he's a massive fan, and we've talked about it on Action at great length together. So yes, so this is really one of my favourite covers. I've got this framed anyway. It's not up at the minute, but it will go back up, and I think it sort of encapsulates everything you need to know about Action in one cover. Excuse me. So yes, so the next one is number 14. This is another great cover, and it's obviously saying that Hook Joe is going to be coming back in this comic, and as you can tell from that, you do get the sense that Hook Joe might be making an appearance in this one. This is one of the best covers that ever features Hook Joe, and this is another classic cover on the Action comic, and it also has warning, this comic is not suitable for adults, which is the classic line, and it couldn't be more truer if you'd had a tagline for something. And I think adults should have stayed well away from this, because adults spoiled this in the long run, didn't they? So yes, so that's number 14, and funny enough, that's the return of Hook Joe, and he's in colour, and also yes, that's number 14. So number 15 was the 22nd of May 1976. Now this one again, the comic, it's a good, like all good comics, I'm not saying that. Action rules okay, of course it does. Hook Joe is a new meaning of terror, but the comic, the cover itself is one of my favourite comics covers. It's not as good as some of the other ones, but it's still good. It's still memorable in some senses. So next is number 14. Hang on a minute, I think I've done that a bit wrong. Right, 13, 14, 15, 16. Sorry about that. I'm trying to do this with no editing, like no stopping and starting, and when you do that, it's hard to get 30 minutes of talking about something without fluffing lines, but anyway, stick with us, we're nearly there. So this one anyway, yes, this one is number 16. Sorry if I miscounted a few, but you've seen all the covers thus far. Now, number 16, the 29th of May, 1976, had a free gift in it. Now, that free gift was also, it had the first part in form 4 of the Hook Joe poster. That meant that the middle pages would be gone again. Yep, okay, which you know that would be in for another 4 weeks. And also had this free game, and I don't even know, it's a bit like Battleships. And weirdly enough, I was buying some comics off eBay, and a group come in, and this was one of them, and it did have the free gift in it, and it wasn't even talked about, which I couldn't believe when I opened it up. But since then, the Pay For Me drums, I have sold it, but I did keep a copy of it. I took a photograph of it, and I will take it and get it printed off and do like a sort of facsimile copy of it, just to keep in with the comic. But yes, and I think I got about £40 for it. Like I say, it all went in the pot for these drums because I was more interested in paying it off before my interest started kicking in, which would have meant that the 2000 drum kit would have ended up being about £6,000. Yeah. So okay, so the next one is number 17, the 5th of June 1976, and this had part 2 of the Hook Joe poster in it. Now, unfortunately, this meant that the centre pages were gone again. I think that this might not be one of my, I just didn't like this cover. I didn't think that they should put anything humorous. I think I was in that mode where I just wanted to see blood and guts and gore. I was, the next cover would suffice that. But this one here, I just found to be a little bit childish, because I considered action to be, it's a comic for kids, it's not for adults, but it's also not for kids, children, which we were, but we didn't think we were at 7. So yes, so this is number 17, 5th of June, and like I say, with these ones, you might get this copy, but you might not get the centre pages. You've got to be very careful of not, but losing out, should I say. So the next one is number 18, the 12th of June 1976, and it had part 3 of the poster in, and it was also the end of the Running Man serial, which was a great serial, and I did enjoy it, especially the character Crazy Luigi, who was in that, which was a great character with his axe. And this cover, which you can see with that, you don't get many of them in a kids comic. Brutal it is. Love that cover, one of my favourite covers. Yep, and that's number 18, the 12th of June 1976. Okay, so number 19 is has got a new strip in it. It's called Hell's Highway, and it's about some trucking. I can't really remember Hell's Highway, if I'm honest. I'll have to. It does point out that to myself that I do have to reread most of this action again, because even though I have read it recently, and I'm going to say recently, be a few years ago, it's getting a little bit grey now, so I'm going to have to go and refresh myself with most of this, which is great, because they're very readable. It's not, you don't just read them once and forget about them. The art in it will draw you in as well, so you've got a lot of readability to them as well, so they're well worth the money if you ever do decide to take that drop into the big drop of parting with your hard-earned cash to complete your collection, because it's not a cheap one, but it's very rewarding if you can do that. So that one there would have the new Hell's Highway in, and it would have part 4 of the Hook Joe poster, which would have meant another 2 pages gone. Now this one here is the last one of the fine grade paper series, and this is number 20. It's the 26th of June 1976, and this is when I the first one I ever had put away from me, because my original copy, none of these are my original copies, by the way. They were all mutilated back in the day, or they were scribbled, or they were just had a pen mark on it. This one my one was in quite good condition of this one, but I had to swap it out because I'd got one without the paper inscription on it, the address on it, which was in pencil, pen as well. So I got this to make all them covers to be the best covers that I could get. The collection doesn't carry on all of that way. It is pretty good, but there is some ones with me original newspaper markings on that, but I wanted to keep them out of more like nostalgia for remembering that they got delivered to the house, or we had to pick them up. So this is the first one that I collected every action from this one. Definitely, I know these ones I would take this one, whatever one, maybe swap some off friends, maybe find some in a bush somewhere, because he used to do things like that, but especially in the 70s. So this one here, it has an advertisement in for the summer special of 1976, which was the only summer special that was before the ban. It was full of guts, and it had the prequel to how Hook Joe actually got his Joe, which was great to find that little story out. And also it introduced in the Death Game 1999 us to the amazing character, which was one of my favourite characters in action, Al Rico, who was a half cyborg mutant monster thing, which was unbelievable as well. And there was a little thing in here, and it says something about who will be the first to get their teeth kicked in. So this was the type of thing that started to get a little bit of attention from adults, because I would imagine if kids are saying that to their mum and dad and all this type of thing, to say, you know, reading them out, or they're getting it and they're looking at it, and the people who didn't like that sort of thing, I could imagine them to sort of take a bit of an umbrage to it. So anyway, so this is the last one of the fine grade paper issues. So this is action number 20, the 26th of June 1976. So that's all of the fine grade ones. The next video will have all of the lower grade ones from action 21, and they must still pre-ban before they got banned. So I'll probably do action number 21 to action number 36, which will be the rest of the pre-banned most desirable, most brutal versions of action comic, which will be the ones that people remember them for. Some people might not even collect after the pre-bans. After it was banned, they might even want to collect any more than that. I personally collected every single thing to do with action in print, and I'm really pleased I did do that, because A, it can only go up in price. B, if you wanted to sell the whole lot for a larger amount of money, you probably could. I don't want to do that, but you know, you've got that to fall back on. It's a bit of an investment if you want to do that. And also, you'll never get another comic like it. I mean, you know that. That's why you're here, to see these great, glorious covers in all their majesty, blood-drenched majesty. Okay, so that's it for this part. Thanks for taking the time out to watch this video. I know it's a long one. I think they're all going to be around about the half-an-hour mark. So thanks for sticking around to the end, and more to come. If you would like to see any more, if you would like to see another version of this later on in the day, to see a bit more inside of these, because at this moment, to keep the time down, I'm going to try and not go too much into them. I'm going to try and tell you a few little details about when strips end, when strips you know, start out, and that, which strips are good, which strips are quite, you know, mediocre. So excuse me. So on that note, if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment, and anything you want to talk about, we'll try and get some conversations going. And also, there's a site on Facebook, which I'll be putting this site on as well. It's a great site, and it's about an action lovers site. I'm not too sure. I think it's I'll get the link down there, hopefully. If I don't, I'll talk about it on my next video, because sometimes you think of these things halfway through the video and you think, I should have researched that a little bit before I came on here. But anyway, that being said, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in part 3. Take care.